The Great Hall was bigger than any building on Earth. Its walls stretched up so high that clouds formed near the ceiling. Ambassador Sarah Chen sat in the human section, a tiny spot among hundreds of other seats. Each seat held a different alien, species. Some looked like giant insects. Others were made of living crystal. A few were just floating balls of light that somehow spoke without mouths. Sarah had been Earth's voice on the Galactic Council for 12 years. She had learned 43 different alien languages. She had eaten foods that would kill most humans. She had made friends with beings that most people would call monsters. But today, none of that mattered. The charges against humanity were being read aloud. The voice came from Speaker Vex, a tall gray creature with 4 arms and no visible eyes. His words echoed through the massive hall. The species known as humans have shown dangerous patterns, Speaker Vex announced. They build too many weapons, they expand too fast, they ask too many questions, they do not follow orders well. Sarah wanted to stand up and shout. She wanted to tell them that humans built weapons because the galaxy was dangerous. They expanded fast because they had 8 billion people who needed homes. They asked questions because that was how they learned. They did not follow orders because they believed in thinking for themselves. But she stayed quiet. The vote had already been decided. She could see it in the way the other ambassadors acted. Most would not look at her. The ones who did look seemed sad or angry but not surprised. The Zephyrians sat 3 rows ahead of her. They had been humanity's first real friends in the galaxy. Their ambassador, a being that looked like a walking tree, kept his head down. The Zephyrians needed human cargo ships to move their goods across space. Without humans, their trade would collapse. But they were voting against Earth anyway. Behind her sat the Crystalline Collective. They were made of living rock and spoke by changing colors. Right now they were flashing deep red, which meant they were upset. Humans had helped them fight off the Silicon Raiders just 5 years ago. Sarah remembered watching human soldiers die to protect crystalline colonies. But today the Collective would vote for Exile too. The worst part was the Andromedans. They looked almost human, except for their blue skin and silver eyes. Commander Zara had fought beside human Marines in dozens of battles. She had saved Sarah's life once during a pirate attack. Now she sat perfectly still, staring straight ahead, refusing to meet Sarah's eyes. The vote will now begin, Speaker Vex announced. All in favor of exile for the human species. The lights began to appear. Each species had a crystal that would glow when they voted. Green meant yes to exile, red meant no, blue meant they could not decide. The first green light came from the hive mind representatives. That was expected. The hive mind thought all individual thinking was wrong. They had always hated humans. Then more green lights appeared. The Void. Stalkers voted yes. The Iron Brotherhood voted yes. The Shadow Fleet voted yes. These were species that humans had never fought. They were voting for exile because they were scared of what humans might become. But then the green light started coming from unexpected places. The Zephyrians voted yes. Their light flickered for a moment, as if they were changing their minds. But it stayed green. The Crystalline Collective voted yes, their colors flashing angry red even as they voted to exile their former allies. Sarah watched the numbers on the big screen above the hall. Yes votes, 156. No votes, 12. Undecided, 3. The Andromedans still had not voted. Commander Zara's crystal remained dark. Sarah could see her hands shaking. The 2 women had worked together for years. They had shared meals and stories. Zara had pictures of human children on her desk because she thought they were cute. Finally, Zara's crystal began to glow. For a moment, Sarah thought it might be red, but it turned green. Another yes vote for exile. The counting went on for 2 hours. Some species voted quickly. Others took their time. A few changed their votes at the last second. But the pattern was clear. The galaxy wanted humans gone. When it was over, the numbers were final. 743 species voted for exile. 89 voted against it. 15 could not decide. Out of 847 voices in the galaxy, less than 100 wanted humans to stay. Speaker Vex stood up again. His voice was calm and cold. The vote is complete. The human species is hereby exiled from the Galactic Council. You have 6 standard cycles to remove all human presence from Council space. A quantum barrier will be placed around your home system. No human may leave, and no other species may enter. Sarah finally stood up. The hall fell silent. Hundreds of alien eyes looked at her. Some seemed sorry. Others looked relieved. A few appeared angry, but not at the decision. They were angry that it had taken so long. "We understand," Sarah said. Her voice was steady, but inside she felt like screaming. "Humanity will comply with the Council's decision." She gathered her things and walked toward the exit. As she passed the Zephyrian section, their ambassador whispered something in his tree-like language. Sarah's translator turned it into words. "I am sorry. We had no choice." Sarah stopped walking. She looked at the tree being who had once called her his favorite human friend. "There is always a choice," she said quietly. "You just made yours." As she left the Great Hall, Sarah noticed something that the other species had missed. The bioscanners near the door were reading stress levels from everyone who walked past. Almost every ambassador showed high stress, the kind that came from doing something they knew was wrong. The galaxy had voted to exile humanity. But Sarah realized that many of them were already regretting it. They just did not know what humans would do next. Neither did she. But she knew one thing for certain. Humanity would not go quietly into the dark. The silence from Earth was the first thing that worried the galaxy. 3 days after the exile vote, every human communication channel went dark. No angry messages. No desperate pleas for mercy. No threats of revenge. Just complete silence. Admiral Marcus Torres stood in the command center of Luna Station, staring at screens filled with data streams. He was a big man with gray hair and scars from the Centauri Wars. His staff moved around him like dancers, each person knowing exactly what to do without being told. "Status report," Torres said quietly. Lieutenant Commander Park stepped forward. She was young, but had the sharp eyes of someone who saw everything. "All human colonies have received the withdrawal order, sir. No one is asking questions. No one is complaining. They are just packing up and getting ready to leave." Torres nodded. The galaxy expected humans to be angry. They expected protests and demands for another vote. Instead, humanity was doing something much more dangerous. They were thinking. On the other side of the station, Dr. Elena Vasquez worked in her laboratory. She was the head of alien biology research. Her lab was filled with samples from every species humans had ever met. Plants from Zephyrian worlds, bacteria from crystalline planets, even tissue samples from the mysterious void stalkers. "Pack everything," she told her team. "Every sample, every data file, every genetic sequence, we are taking it all home." Her assistant, a young man named David, looked confused. "But Dr. Vasquez, if we are being exiled, why do we need alien biology samples?" Elena smiled, but her eyes were cold. "Because we are not just leaving, David. We are learning. And when we are done learning, we will know more about them than they know about themselves." Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on every human world. The mining colony on Kepler 442b began loading their ships with not just people, but with every piece of alien technology they could find. The research station orbiting the black hole called Charybdis packed up 50 years of data about space-time physics. The trade hub at New Geneva copied the financial records of every alien species they had ever done business with. Commander James Park ran the intelligence division. He was Elena's older brother, but where she collected biological data, he collected secrets. His people had spent decades learning about alien military technology, political systems, and hidden weaknesses. Now they were copying everything onto secure drives and preparing to take it all back to Earth. "Sir," one of his agents reported, "the Zephyrians are asking why we are taking so much equipment with us. They think we only need transport for people." James smiled. It was not a nice smile. "Tell them we are taking souvenirs." The galaxy was starting to notice. On the Zephyrian homeworld, Trade Minister Vel watched human cargo ships loading more than just colonists. The ships were taking industrial equipment, computer cores, and massive data storage units. Why do they need so much? Vel asked his aide. They are going back to one system. They do not need our technology anymore. His aide, a younger Zephyrian, looked worried. Perhaps they want to remember us, Minister. Vel's tree-like branches shook. In Zephyrian body language, this meant fear. I think they want to do more than remember. The Crystalline Collective was having similar concerns. Their ambassador, who called herself Brightstone of Morning, sent urgent messages to other council members. Her words flashed in angry red colors across her crystal body. The humans are taking too much knowledge, she signaled to the other species. They copy our trade agreements. They scan our technology. They ask questions about our military defenses. This is not normal evacuation behavior. But when the other species asked humans about it, they got simple answers. We are scientists, Dr. Vasquez told a crystalline investigator. We like to study things. Is that against council law? We are traders, the human merchants explained to Zephyrian officials. We want to understand your business methods. Is learning illegal now? We are military officers, Admiral Torres told an Andromedan security team. We study tactics and weapons. That is what soldiers do. None of these answers were lies, but they were not the whole truth either. On Earth, massive construction projects began. Shipyards that had been building trade vessels started making research ships. Laboratories that had been studying alien cultures began working on new technologies. Universities that had been teaching human students about galaxy civilization changed their programs to focus on engineering and warfare. The most important work happened in secret facilities hidden under mountains and beneath oceans. Human scientists began combining alien technologies in ways that had never been tried before. They took Zephyrian power systems and mixed them with crystalline computing methods. They studied Andromedan stealth technology and improved it with human creativity. They learned from Void Stalker energy weapons and made them more efficient. Dr. Sarah Chen, who had returned from the council vote, now worked as the head of the integration project. This was the secret name for humanity's plan to take everything they had learned from other species and make it better. They gave us 6 cycles to leave, she told her team during a meeting in an underground bunker. They think 6 cycles is punishment. They do not understand that 6 cycles is opportunity. The team around her included the best minds from every human world. Engineers who had built impossible things. Scientists who had solved mysteries that baffled alien experts. Military strategists who had won battles against superior forces. What they do not realize, Chen continued, is that humans have always been best when we are alone, when we have to solve problems by ourselves, when we have to be creative instead of just following what others have done before. As the months passed, the galaxy began to feel nervous. Human colonies were evacuating on schedule, but the humans seemed too calm, too organized, too happy about leaving. The final human colony shut down exactly 6 cycles after the vote. The last human ship crossed the boundary line around Sol system. The quantum barrier activated, sealing humanity inside their home star system. The galaxy celebration was quiet. Many species felt guilty about what they had done. Others worried about what they had started. They would not know for decades that their biggest mistake was giving humanity time to prepare. 6 cycles had been enough time to copy every piece of alien knowledge. 6 cycles had been enough time to plan. 6 cycles had been enough time for humanity to decide that exile was not punishment, it was opportunity. The quantum barrier around Sol system hummed with energy that made space itself bend. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Ships that tried to approach it simply stopped existing. Messages sent toward it vanished into nothing. The barrier was perfect. Nothing could get in. Nothing could get out. For the first year after the exile, the galaxy felt relief. The dangerous humans were locked away. Trade routes reopened without human competition. Military budgets could be reduced, since human aggression was no longer a threat. The Galactic Council congratulated itself on solving the human problem. But problems have a way of growing when no one is paying attention. The first sign of trouble came from the outer rim. The hive mind, a collection of insect-like creatures that shared one massive brain, began expanding again. They had been quiet for decades because human military forces had always stopped their growth. Now there were no humans to fight them. The hive ships moved like a wave of metal and death. They consumed everything in their path. Planets were stripped bare. Entire species were either killed or absorbed into the hive collective mind. The wave grew bigger and stronger with each world it destroyed. Commander Zara of the Andromedans received the first distress calls. Her blue face went pale as she read the reports. The hive had taken 12 systems in 3 months. At this rate, they would reach major civilization centers within 5 years. Send our battle fleets, she ordered her staff. We will stop them like we always have. But when the Andromedan fleet met the hive forces at the Proxima Junction, something terrible happened. The human battle plans were gone. The human coordinators who had always made the joint fleets work together were no longer there. The human ships that had always led the charge into battle were locked behind a quantum wall. The Andromedans fought bravely, but they fought alone. And alone, they were not strong enough. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, 70% of the Andromedan fleet was destroyed. The survivors limped home with news that made the council panic. Without human help, they could not stop the hive mind. Trade problems came next. The Zephyrians discovered that their cargo routes were failing. Human ships had carried 60% of all goods moved between star systems. Human logistics experts had planned the most efficient paths through space. Human negotiators had solved disputes between trading partners. Trade Minister Vell stood in his office looking at reports that made no sense. How did we move cargo before the humans came? He asked his aide. Slowly, Minister, the aide replied. Very slowly, and with much higher costs. The numbers were frightening. Without human efficiency, shipping costs had increased by 300%. Some trade routes had stopped working entirely. Worlds that had grown dependent on imported food were starting to face hunger. The crystalline collective faced their own crisis. Human miners had been the best at finding rare elements in dangerous places. Human engineers had designed the equipment that made deep space mining possible. Human workers had been willing to do jobs that other species found too risky. Now the EI collective's energy production was falling. Without rare elements, their crystal cities began to dim. Without human engineering, their mining equipment broke down and could not be repaired. Brightstone of Morning flashed worried yellow colors as she addressed her people. We may have made an error, she admitted. The humans were more important to our survival than we realized. But the worst problem was political. With humans gone, old conflicts between species began to resurface. The Zephyrians and the Iron Brotherhood had been enemies for centuries before humans helped them make peace. Now they were fighting again over mining rights in the asteroid belt of Sorrows. The Voidstalkers had always been suspicious of the Silicon Raiders. Human diplomats had kept them from declaring war on each other. Now both species were building weapons and preparing for battle. Even the Andromedans and the Crystalline Collective, who had been allies for generations, began to disagree about who should control the space stations that humans had abandoned. The council meetings became shouting matches. Species that had voted together to exile humanity now blamed each other for the problems that exile had caused. Some wanted to try to contact Earth and ask for help. Others said that would make them look weak. Speaker Vex tried to keep order, but his forearms were not enough to manage the chaos. We must work together, he called out during one particularly loud session. We must solve these problems ourselves. How? Demanded the Zephyrian representative. Our trade networks are collapsing. Our people are going hungry. The humans knew how to fix these things. Then we will learn, replied the crystalline ambassador, her colors flashing angry red. We are not children. We do not need humans to solve our problems. But learning took time. And time was something they did not have. The hive mind continued to expand. Each month brought news of more worlds destroyed, more species absorbed or killed. The barrier fleets that tried to stop them were defeated one by one. Without human coordination and human battle tactics, the galaxy's defenses crumbled. Economic collapse spread like a disease. Worlds that had been rich became poor. Species that had been powerful became weak. The great civilization that had exiled humanity began to fall apart. Some council members began to wonder what the humans were doing behind their quantum wall. Were they planning revenge? Were they building weapons? Were they simply waiting for the galaxy to destroy itself? The barrier gave no answers. It remained perfect and silent. Whatever humanity was doing in their prison of light, they were doing it alone. Years passed. The galaxy grew darker and more dangerous. The council that had once ruled 800 worlds now controlled less than half that number. The great alliance of species was breaking into small groups that fought each other as often as they fought the hive. And still the barrier around Sol system hummed with energy, keeping its secrets locked away. In the council chambers, where the exile vote had been held so long ago, empty seats marked the species that had been destroyed or had fled to distant corners of the galaxy. The remaining members met less often and argued more bitterly. They had wanted to get rid of the human problem. Instead, they had discovered that humans had not been the problem at all. Humans had been the solution. 57 years had passed since the quantum barrier sealed around Sol system. 57 years of silence. 57 years of wondering what the humans were doing behind their wall of light. Then, on a Tuesday morning that started like any other, the barrier simply stopped existing. Captain Zara's granddaughter, Admiral Kira, was commanding the Andromedan border patrol near the old human territory when her sensors went crazy. She was older now than Zara had been during the exile vote, with the same blue skin but silver hair that showed her age. "What is that?" she asked her sensor officer, a young Andromedan who had never seen a human in his life. "I do not know, Admiral," the officer replied, his voice shaking. "The quantum barrier just disappeared, like it was never there at all." Kira stared at the empty space where the barrier had been. For 57 years, that wall of energy had been solid and perfect. Ships that touched it vanished. Messages that approached it were destroyed. Now there was nothing but ordinary space. "Send a probe toward Sol system," she ordered. Carefully, the probe moved slowly toward where Earth's sun waited in the distance. Kira expected it to be destroyed like all the others had been. Instead, it kept flying. The readings it sent back made no sense. "Admiral," the sensor officer said, his voice getting higher with fear. "There are ships coming out of Sol system, lots of ships." Kira looked at her main screen. What she saw made her forget how to breathe. The ships that emerged from human space were beautiful and terrible. They moved like dancers, flowing through space in patterns that seemed impossible. Their hulls were made of materials that bent light around them, making them shimmer like mirages. They did not look like the boxy human ships that Kira remembered. From old videos, these ships looked like art. Deadly art. "How many?" Kira whispered. 300 so far, Admiral. And more coming." The lead ship was larger than anything humans had ever built before. It was smooth and curved, like a drop of water frozen in time. But sensors showed it was made of metals that should not exist and powered by energy sources that violated known physics. A communication signal reached Kira's ship. The message was in perfect Andromedan, spoken by a voice that sounded both human and something more. "This is Captain Lisa Zhang of the Earth vessel Ascendant. We are returning to galactic space. Please do not be afraid." Kira knew that name from the history files. Lisa Zhang had been a young human officer during the exile. She should be dead by now, or at least very old. But the voice sounded like it came from someone in the prime of life. "Captain Zhang," Kira replied carefully. "This is Admiral Kira of the Andromedan Defense Force. We did not expect to hear from humanity again." "We understand," Zhang replied. "We have been gone for a long time, but we have been listening. We know about the hive expansion. We know about the trade collapses. We know about the wars." Kira felt a chill run down her spine. "You have been listening? How?" "We learned many things during our exile, Admiral, including how to hear whispers across the void. More human ships emerged from Sol system, Some were massive, bigger than space stations. Others were small and quick, moving in ways that made Kira's pilots feel sick just watching. All of them were beautiful. All of them were clearly dangerous. The fleet spread out across space with precision that no military force had ever shown. Each ship took exactly the right position. No orders were given that Kira could hear, but every vessel moved as if controlled by a single mind. "Captain Zhang," Kira said, trying to keep her voice steady. "What are your intentions?" "We are going to help," Zhang replied simply. "The hive mind has taken over 2/3 of the galaxy. Your people are starving. The trade routes are broken. Wars are being fought over resources that should be shared. We are going to fix these things. And if we do not want your help?" There was a pause. When Zhang spoke again, her voice was sad but firm. "Then you will die. And we will fix things anyway, for those who survive." The human fleet began to move, not toward Andromedan space, but toward the hive mind territories. Their ships accelerated to speeds that should have killed anyone inside. But they did not seem to care about the laws of physics anymore. News of humanity's return spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Some species panicked, remembering the vote that had exiled the humans decades ago. Others felt hope, for the first time in years. The first battle between the returning humans and the hive mind happened at the Scorpion Nebula. It lasted exactly 17 minutes. The hive had been expanding through that region for months, consuming planets and adding biomass to their collective. They had 12,000 ships, all armed with weapons that could crack planets. They had conquered everything they had ever fought. The humans sent 50 ships. When the battle was over, all 12,000 hive vessels were gone. The 50 human ships were undamaged. The hive worlds in the region simply stopped responding to the collective mind. Later exploration would find that the hive creatures on those planets had somehow been freed from their shared consciousness. They were individuals, again many for the first time in centuries. The galaxy watched in shock. The hive mind, which had been unstoppable for 57 years, had been defeated in less than 20 minutes. But the humans were not done. Their ships spread out across space, moving to help solve the galaxy's other problems. They fixed broken trade routes with technology that made cargo ships move faster than they ever had before. They ended wars by simply appearing in the battle zones and politely asking everyone to stop fighting. When species refused to cooperate, the humans did not use violence. They used something worse. They used embarrassment. Their ships would simply demonstrate their superiority until the fighting species realized how foolish their conflicts looked compared to human capabilities. Captain Zhang sent messages to the Galactic Council, or what was left of it. "We would like to attend your next meeting," she said. "We have some suggestions for improving how things are done." The council members who received the message felt the same fear their ancestors had felt when voting for Exile. But this time, the fear was mixed with desperate hope. Humanity had returned, and they were no longer the same species that had been exiled. They were something new, something better, something that made the old galaxy look like children playing with broken toys. The question was, what did they want? The council chambers had changed in 57 years. Half the seats were empty now. Many species had been destroyed by the hive mind. Others had fled to distant parts of the galaxy. The Great Hall that had once held 847 different alien races now housed barely 300. Speaker Vex still led the meetings, but his forearms moved slowly now. He was old and tired. The decision to exile humanity haunted him every day. He had thought he was saving the galaxy from dangerous humans. Instead, he had helped destroy it. When Captain Lisa Zhang walked into the chambers, every conversation stopped. She looked exactly the same as she had 57 years ago. Her hair was still black. Her skin was still smooth. Her eyes were still bright with intelligence. But something had changed. She moved with a confidence that seemed to bend reality around her. Behind her came other humans. Some were faces that older council members recognized from before the exile. Others were clearly newborn during the years behind the quantum barrier. All of them looked healthy, strong, and far too young for the time that had passed. Zhang walked to the center of the hall where Speaker Vex waited. She did not bow. She did not ask for permission to speak. She simply stood there and waited. "Captain?" "Zhang," Vex said, his voice shaking slightly. "Welcome back to the Galactic Council." "Thank you, Speaker Vex," Zhang replied. Her voice carried clearly through the massive hall without any amplification. "Though I should mention that I am no longer a captain. My proper title now is Guardian Prime of the Terran Hegemony." The word sent whispers through the assembled aliens. Hegemony meant rule. It meant power over others. It meant that humans were no longer asking to be part of the galaxy. They were announcing that they owned it. "Guardian Prime," Vex said carefully, "we are grateful for your help with the hive mind crisis. Your intervention saved many worlds." Zhang smiled. It was not a cruel smile, but it was not entirely kind either. "We did not intervene to help you, Speaker Vex. We intervened because the hive mind was causing chaos. Chaos is inefficient. We do not like inefficiency." Admiral Kira stood up from the Andromedan section. She had been given a special seat for bringing the first news of humanity's return. "Guardian Prime Zhang, what are your intentions for the galaxy?" "Our intentions are simple," Zhang replied. "We are going to fix things. Trade routes will work properly. Wars will end. Resources will be distributed fairly. The galaxy will be stable and peaceful." Trade Minister Vel, now very old and using mechanical supports to keep his tree-like body upright, raised a branch. "And if we do not want these changes?" Zhang turned to look at him. Her eyes seemed to see right through him. "Minister Vel, your people voted to exile us because you thought we were dangerous. You were right. We were dangerous then. Do you know what we are now?" Vel's branches shook with fear. "What are you now?" "We are necessary." Zhang walked closer, to the Zephyrian section. "Your trade networks are running at 20% efficiency. Your people are hungry because food shipments take too long. Your economy is collapsing because you cannot move goods properly. We can fix this in 6 months." She turned to the Crystalline Collective. "Your energy production is failing because you cannot mine the rare elements you need. Your cities are growing dark. Your people are becoming weak. We can fix this in 3 months." She faced the Andromedans. "Your military forces have been defeated by every major threat for the past 50 years. Your colonies are undefended. Your enemies are planning to attack your homeworld next year. We can fix this in 1 month." Speaker Vex stood up slowly. "And the price for these fixes?" "The price is simple," Zhang said. "You will do what we tell you to do. When we say trade should flow a certain way, you will make it flow that way. When we say a war should end, you will end it. When we say a species should be protected, you will protect them." The hall erupted in angry voices. Some species shouted about independence. Others demanded to know who had given humans the right to rule the galaxy. A few asked what would happen if they refused. Zhang waited for the noise to die down. She did not shout. She did not threaten. She simply stood there until everyone was quiet again. "You are thinking about this wrong," she said calmly. "You think we are taking something away from you. We are not. We are giving you something you have never had before." "What is that?" asked Bright Stone of Morning, her crystal body flashing. "Confused colors. Competence." Zhang gestured to the empty seats around the hall. "Look around you. This used to be a great civilization. 800 species working together. Now you are barely 300 and most of you hate each other. You had 57 years to prove you could govern yourselves without us. How did that work out?" The silence that followed was complete and bitter. "You exiled us because you were afraid of what we might become," Zhang continued. "You should have been afraid of what you would become without us. You should have been afraid of your own weakness." She walked back to the center of the hall. "But we are not cruel. We remember that some of you tried to vote against our exile. We remember that some of you helped us when you could. Those species will be rewarded with better positions in the new order." "And those who voted for exile?" Vex asked quietly. Zhang looked directly at him. "You will be forgiven, eventually, but you will start at the bottom. You will have to earn back our trust. Some of you may never manage it." She turned to address the entire hall. The Terran hegemony is not asking for your permission to govern the galaxy. We are informing you that we already do. Your choice is simple: work with us and prosper, fight us and be removed. An old Andromedan senator, one of the few who had voted against Exile so many years ago, stood up. Guardian Prime, what happened to you behind that barrier? How did you become this? Zhang's expression softened slightly. We learned, Senator. We took every piece of knowledge you ever shared with us. We took every technology you ever showed. We combined it all with human creativity and human determination. And then we made it better. She paused. You wanted us gone when we were learning from you. Now that we have learned to surpass you, we choose to stay. The galaxy hesitated to accept us as equals. Now you will learn to accept us as guardians. Speaker. Vex looked around the hall at the faces of the remaining council members. Some looked angry, some looked afraid, but most looked relieved. For 57 years they had struggled to hold their civilization together. Now someone else would carry that burden. All in favor of recognizing the Terran hegemony as the governing authority of the galaxy, he said tiredly. The vote was unanimous, not because everyone wanted it, but because everyone understood that wanting it did not matter anymore. Humanity had come home, and home would never be the same.